Young Turks. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. We have an amazing show ahead for you guys. A little bit later in the program, Steve Bannon going nuclear. How is he attacking the Trump administration? That's going to be awesome. People have begun discussing the 25th Amendment, removing a president for mental incompetence. I mean, when you phrase it like that, it seems fairly straightforward, right? Of course it's not. It's a very difficult process. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. In the second hour, we've got some political stories. Why did 4 Navy cruisers all crash within this year? There's something weird about that story and fishy about it. How much are we paying for Trump's vacations? And then also in the second hour, along with those two stories, a famous Hollywood director who is known as a progressive and a feminist, who's been on this program, has been outed by his wife. It is a very controversial, very interesting conversation that we're going to have a little bit later. Okay, but in the first segment, we're starting with nothing but wall-to-wall fun. Let's start with the solar eclipse. Okay. So solar eclipse happened today. Fun for everybody. Now, what's the one thing that they told you?
Ready?
Don't look up at the sun. You can go blind. In fact, I saw news stories of folks that had looked up at the sun in the last solar eclipse over 30 years ago, and they never recovered their eyesight. So this is very well known. A lot of the schools keep the kids indoors because they think the kids might not be mature enough to not look at the sun. So, of course, what do we have? Donald Trump goes up on the Truman balcony in the White House and looks right into the sun. There he is. There's the first look. God, you put on the glasses. He did have the glasses on earlier, but of course he can't help himself. Then he wants to point to it because he's a child. It's like, oh, now you see, there's the sun that I'm looking at. Look at, then go to the next one. There is Melania, who's got glasses on, and his son's looking down. They didn't have to warn their son. They had to warn the president. Okay, So here's my favorite part of the story. Business Insider reports, according to a White House poll report, one of Trump's aides shouted, "Don't look!" when Trump came out and pointed at the sky. Because they have to remind the man-child of very, very simple things like don't look into the sun. I'm a bad man, but I was amused by the thought that Trump would have blinded himself. He has in other ways, metaphorically. If he did it literally and he has to walk around with the glasses, he's like, nobody knew that looking into the sun was this complicated. Okay, now, I wouldn't root for that. That's a bad thing. But him, of course, looking at the sun, not a big issue, but a funny one. And if I told you ahead of time, again, even if you're a Trump supporter, what do you think? Does Trump look into the sun or doesn't he? You know what you'd have said. Of course, he's going to look into the sun. By the way, Twitter, of course, also had some fun with it. I like Josh Billson wrote, "This is the moment he became president." And some thought that he was doing it because somebody told him not to look into the sun. Oh, yeah, nobody tells me what to do, okay? I'll ban transgender people from the military. I'll fire that guy, and I'll look right into the sun. And of course, the leading theory was he thought that it was fake news that you lose your eyesight if you look into the sun. Be careful what you call fake news. There was also a cute moment where Jeff Sessions looked with glasses at the sun, his hands clasped. Hey, it's a cute moment from the Trump White House. Didn't think that could happen. Okay, well, there you have it. Let's hope that this eclipse is not only... Well, this eclipse doesn't set on the sun, so that analogy didn't work. We're moving forward. Okay, on to the second fun story. Okay. Chris Christie's in a world of trouble in New Jersey, as you all know, but this is his last term. His popularity has dipped to 15%. He's the least popular governor in the country. Sam Brownback of Kansas is also so deeply unpopular they had to make up a post for him to take in the Trump White House, where he's supposed to be a liaison for religion, kind of, at large. And Chris Christie's even more unpopular than Brownback, but to run from his own state is shame. So, where's he going to run to? Well, he was thinking of doing sports talk radio. There's a great update on that today. That's why I'm giving you this story. But let me just quickly remind you of how when he was on sports radio. Here's one caller's interaction with him.
Hey, Governor, next time you want to sit on a beach that is closed to the entire world except you, you put your fat ass in a car and go to one that's open to all humans.
Well, you know,
not just New York.
Interesting, Mike. You know what?
What's that, Gov?
You know, Mike, I love getting calls from communists in Montclair.
Communists in Montclair.
You know,
you're a bully, Governor, and I don't like bullies.
You know what? And listen, I'm not the one who came on the air. Hey, hold on, Mike. Mike, I'm not the guy who came on the air, swore on the air.
Who swore?
And so you did.
Get the heck out of here.
You know, you're swearing on the air, Mike. You're a bum.
You know, let's just
go. Bad optics.
Okay?
Mike, I'd love to come look at your optics every day, buddy.
So, look, I've listened to sports talk, especially when I was younger. It seems kind of mild. Oh, you cursed on the air. He called you a fat ass. I mean, if we can't call people fat asses on sports talk radio, let's just not have sports talk radio. So now he was trying out for Mike Francesca's role at WFAN because Francesca's stepping down at year's end. News has come out. On Saturday, the New York Daily News reported that New Jersey Governor Chris Christie was no longer being considered by WFAN to replace departing sports radio icon Mike Francesca at year's end. Oops! Couldn't even get that job. Well, Chris Christie then had to put out a statement saying, after considering the other options that I have been presented with for post-gubernatorial employment, I declined their request to do additional shows. It didn't turn me down. I turned them down. I mean, I didn't say that earlier, and I never mentioned it publicly or otherwise. But trust me, it wasn't me. It was that I turned them down. I got you. Oh, that's so embarrassing. That's so wonderfully embarrassing. By the way, you know, if you want to be successful in media, you also have to be popular. And Chris Christie has burned or closed down every bridge there is, and has lost all of his popularity, whatever that he had in the beginning, and is now jobless. Soon will be out of the governor's mansion and homeless. Not in the streets, I suspect, because he did do right by his donors. But the fact that he can't find a job anywhere is wonderful. Okay, now we move forward. So recently, Alex Jones was in Seattle. He apparently had a bunch of dust-ups. Don't care. Somebody threw coffee on him. I don't know if it's real or not real. It turns out that guy was an actor, and everybody's trying to figure out if it's a conspiracy within a conspiracy, if it's a false flag operation. Don't care. He's not a relevant person. He believes that there are 80% gorillas, 80% pig, 80% humans, all in one creature. The guy's a full-blown lunatic. I just like to laugh at him. So that's what we're going to do here. He apparently chased out 3 different people in Seattle. This was one of them. I'm going to show you the video. Not very many things you'll see funnier than Alex Jones running. Let's watch.
Set up and written in secret. That's why bipartisanly. Come on over here. Come on over here. Make it let me off. Come on, coward. Come on. You're not intellectual. You're a fake and a fraud. No. Let me off. If you're not intellectual, you're a dumbass. Because you fucked up. Fuck you. Coward. Yeah. You know something? I'm not afraid of you people. You got something to say, say it. You got nothing intellectual. You're an intellectual dumbass who watches the mainstream media. Anyways. Cowards want to get in people's faces.
That guy cracks me up, man. At least he's entertaining. Okay. Who in the middle of a news report runs after somebody like that? Who thinks that it is a smart thing to say that you are an intellectual dumbass? But come on, let's have fun. You know we're going to break down the video. First, the best part, running. And I like he gets discombobulated at the end. He's like, anyway, what was I in the middle of doing? Look, I don't know if he's mentally unstable. Very, very likely. He's acting, also likely. You know, or a combination thereof. But this guy had a couple of good comebacks, man. Let's watch one of them right now.
You fuck off. I'm fucking off. Fuck you.
That's one of my favorites. I am fucking off. Hard to argue with that. One more.
You know something? I'm not afraid of you people. You got something to say, say it. You got nothing intellectual. You're an intellectual dumbass.
You got something to say, say it. Yeah, I just said it. Fuck you. Dude, when you get outwitted by a guy who's just crossing the street giving you the middle finger, it's not a pretty day for Alex Jones. I'm going to give you Seattle PD's reaction here in a second. And afterwards, we're going to watch that run one last time. So he's just queued up again. So in this case, somebody reached out and asked the Seattle Police Department, are you guys going to do anything? Because they think that Alex Jones is a fraud and instigating, or they think the guy who threw the coffees. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I like the snark that the Seattle Police Department had. They said, we haven't received any official reports. As far as we know, that could be an actor playing Alex Jones. Zinger! I like it. Of course, that's a reference to his recent child custody hearings where he said, and his lawyers claimed, he's just an actor. He doesn't really mean any of it. He's just acting a role, and in his private life, he's not like that at all. For the sake of anyone who knows him in his private life, I hope not, because if you say anything slightly wrong, you might get this reaction. The president takes that guy seriously. Oh, God. Every time I think about that, it goes from funny to incredibly tragic. All right, we're going to take a short break here. When we come back, Steve Bannon going to war. Oh, these guys are going to totally F each other up. It is going to be great. I'll tell you all about it when we return. I got a bunch of things to go through. No Republican would have ever voted for Bernie. He would have done worse than Hillary.
So miserable. All right, let me stop a second. Well, I say things that are offensive.
If I ran for office, and that would be a trippy day, right? I'd break even more rules than Trump. If I had all the money in the world, I would enjoy that. We have a great show for you. Steve's answer is C. James is A. And the correct answer is, of course, B. You guys are the worst. Here's the story. And it's not funny.
It's just comically unfair and ridiculous. The Democratic Party just sucks right now. It just sucks because it doesn't know what it stands for. We should know it.
The Gasland Killer Piece to Absent presents 2016 shit. I like drums. I like big drums. Heavy, funky, deep drums. I'm not classically trained. I just started out as a record collector. I have synthesizers. I have all these modular synths and fun DJ tools that I use to make psychedelic sounds. It's not just the music. People want to leave their bodies in order to connect with the spirit world. And when you're making music, it's a similar kind of thing. You want to escape your day-to-day to leaving this shit behind and finding more of a deeper place to create from. That is the essence of Gaslamp Killer music.
Hurry up!
Hey guys, back on the Young Turks. I've got a ton of stories for you guys, so only a couple of tweets here. Digital Shark says he can't see his approval ratings if he's blind. Jay says, wait. Alex Jones is pissed about someone fucking up a live broadcast? That's funny. Nice job, Jay. Give Jay a t-shirt, okay? Shop TYT.com for t-shirts. Jessica says, who does the sound effects for TYT Live? Because they should be running the place. So now, normally that's Bart. So Bart, you're apparently in line for CEO. But in that case, for the Alex Jones video, it was actually J.R. Jackson. So, sorry, you go to third in line of command, Bart. J.R. is now number 2, Carl. Okay, so let's go to turmoil in the White House, which is a segment we could do every day. What do you think about that? All right. Steve Bannon is now loose and out in the wild, if you will. One of the questions that arises out of that situation is there going to be more stability at the White House now? Good luck with that. So let's begin to answer that in a couple of different ways. First, the Washington Post has this story. They explain no administration in history has been so divided among itself about the direction about where it should go. And Steve Bannon said that in an interview with him. So he's saying no administration has ever been divided, saying, adding that Trump's base is frustrated by a congressional agenda that is dovetailed more with traditional Republican priorities than the agenda Trump championed. Now, Steve Bannon is correct about both of those things. I've never seen a White House this divided. I mean, Obama talked about having a team of rivals. This is a team of rivals. No, Obama's was incredibly calm, cool, and collected. And as much as there were flare-ups from time to time with Bush and Clinton, Reagan, nothing like this. Nothing. It's an absolute madhouse over there. And it's partly because they don't agree. And it's also partly because of ego, and in my opinion, they're all bad guys. And so what do bad guys do? They stab each other in the back. So all of that has added up to complete chaos. And plus, the most important part, which we're going to talk about more in a second, is no one's home. There's no boss. There's no competent leader that has allowed them to do this. But Bannon is right about the second part, too, which is that in that divided leadership, or divided house with no leadership, the establishment guys have largely won. So there's talk of building a wall, but not much has been done about it. The trade wars that were promised with China and other folks have not materialized at all. Instead, more the establishment, hey, let's keep everything calm and cool, and make sure we just get tax cuts for the rich, and who cares about your other parts of your agenda, which might actually hurt our business interests. So that's out, that's gone. Just about every policy issue you look at, the populist wing of Trump is not winning. Now you can say, hey, they're winning on the whole white nationalist stuff. If you can call that a win, but obviously Steve Bannon was kicked out partly because of those reasons, so they're not winning on that anymore. They're a mess. And second of all, that misunderstands their mandate, whatever little mandate that they had, which was to be, and Bannon is right about this too, to do economic populism. Don't get me wrong. His policy ideas are horribly wrong. And if the country went in that direction, it would greatly hurt the country, not help the country. But in terms of politics, that is what his base elected him for. They don't like the establishment. They put Trump in office specifically because he was running against the establishment. If he was running against another populist, he almost certainly would not have won. But he was running against an incredibly establishment figure in Hillary Clinton. So this doesn't bode well for Trump on a couple of different grounds because of that. All right. So they explain further. In an interview in Washington on Saturday, I should say, Bannon warned Republican leaders to enthusiastically support Trump's priorities on taxes, trade, and funding a massive border wall, or risk the wrath of the president's base, including Breitbart, to which Bannon returned Friday as executive chairman. Look, taxes are easy. They all agree on giant trillions of dollars in tax cuts for the rich. They will do that whether it's with Trump or not. That is Republican 101. So that's the one area they're all aligned on, and that's why I've said from day one, there's one thing you can bank on, and it's giant tax cuts for the rich and for multinational corporations. On trade, they don't agree, so Bannon's contingent is not likely to win, in which case they get angry and start attacking the Trump administration. good news for the rest of us. And one of the things they want to win on is, even Paul Ryan has said, well, look, I mean, these tax cuts are so enormous, and it's going to create giant deficits. I mean, if you thought deficits were bad under Democrats, first of all, that's because of George W. Bush that Obama got that deficit in the first place, and he actually decreased it by 50%. But if you thought that was bad, wait till you get a load of the deficits after this tax cut. So, and Paul Ryan knows that, and he's like, well, can we at least do an importation tax? And corporate America was like, no, you can't. The Koch brothers are like, no, we get a lot of stuff from Mexico. No, you will not be allowed to do that. And Paul Ryan said, okay, sorry, sir, absolutely, sir. Just tax cuts, nothing else. So they won't get any of that stuff, and hence there'll be more infighting in the White House. Now we go to Matt Schlapp, who's the chairman of the American Conservative Union. They're backing Banna's crew here. He says, I think Steve is going to be more effective on the outside. On the outside, if you're well-funded and you are feared, you have a platform, you're going to be a power player. Steve has all of that in spades. Well, outside of Trump, I don't see why anybody would fear Steve Bannon. Yes, Steve Bannon could strip away votes from his base, and that's a legitimate concern for the president. If you're a Democratic congressperson, the idea of being afraid of Steve Bannon should be absolutely laughable. I mean, he is such a polarizing figure. He's nothing but an ally for you politically in that sense, and you should attack him with 100% ferocity. Now, not something the Democratic establishment is that familiar with, but man, is this a soft target. If you can't hit this target, then you better get out of the game. But there's one other interesting thing in that quote, which is he's well-funded. Now, Breitbart doesn't make any money. Breitbart has lost 90% of his advertisers since this administration began, and their viewer numbers, and I should say their reader numbers, are in the tank. So how are they well-funded? Because on the right, they don't run real businesses. It's just propaganda outlets. So the Mercers, who are the white nationalist Wall Street guys, it's a very fun combo of racist and Wall Street abuse, are funding Breitbart. They're like, well, we want propaganda for white nationalism. We want propaganda for giant tax cuts and on our, extreme right-wing position. And obviously you losers at Breitbart can't make any money. Come on, when's the last time a conservative publication ever made money? New York Post loses money. Weekly Standard has a comically low circulation rate. I mean, all these publications are absolute disasters. They're not winning with them. They're a mess. So guys like Mercer have to come in and prop them up. So it's interesting that there is still that money out there for Breitbart to go not only cause trouble for Democrats, but also not establishment Republicans. And with that we get, and I can respect that, but also for their own president. Hey, if you're not going to play, we're going to take our ball and go home and, damn the torpedoes. It's probably not a good strategy for them overall, but music to my ears. Okay, now, well, how significant is this conflict going to be? Well, here's another excerpt from the Post. On Friday, a flurry of bravado-filled interviews with Bannon appeared on various websites, including one in which he said he felt, quote, as if I've got my hands back on my weapons, and was prepared to, quote, crush the opposition. Now, talk of crushing the opposition is fairly standard, especially online. Having his weapons back in Breitbart, okay, it's right-wing talk. Not a big deal. For the rest of us, I don't think. But again, if you're the Trump White House and you just kick this guy out, and he's talking about grabbing his weapons, and he also called Breitbart a killing machine. Questionable right-wing terminology there, but that is problematic, of course. Now we go to a Republican strategist who says, what it does not do is remove the person who's creating the most drama in the White House, and that's Donald Trump. He's going to continue to do what he's going to do. So that means, you might have got rid of Bannon, and you might have got rid of Priebus and Spicer and Scaramucci and all these other, but they're not the ones that are causing the problem. They're a symptom of the problem. The problem is Donald Trump. He's a total clown. So, end of the Washington Post story here says, on most of these issues, there is no evident strategy among Republicans on either side of Pennsylvania Avenue for bridging divisions and bringing Trump and congressional Republicans together. yes, there is no evidence strategy because Donald Trump is in charge. So you can have Steve Bannon go, and it might be immediately helpful because you restore some degree of order in the White House. Long term, it might be damaging because he's going to fire all of his cannons on you, apparently, at some point. But at the end of the day, it isn't going to help anything because the source of the instability was not Bannon. The source of some of the hatred and the white nationalism, etc., might have been Bannon, but the source of the instability is the president himself. So at the end of the day, you've solved nothing and probably created more headaches for yourself now that you're in some ways going to war with your base. That should be fun. Okay. What do we think, guys? Do we take a break here to fix the lights? No? We keep going? All right. As you can tell, we are not funded by the Mercers. Okay. We'll get some investor money on that, though. Okay. So, let's go to the next story. Now, to give you a sense of how much Steve Bannon might be going to war with the Trump administration now that he's been relieved of command, now that he's no longer chief strategist for Donald Trump, we're going to give you a bunch of quotes about how his publication Breitbart, and he is now back to being in charge of Breitbart, is, well, in their words, let me quote Steve Bannon here, quote, "We're going to war. They're going to war with the White House." Going to do a little bit of this. Fun for everybody, except Donald Trump. For progressives, those guys ripping each other to shreds is a wonderful moment. Because remember, taking down the establishment is a worthy goal if you win and you have a good strategy that's going to deliver for the American people. In their case, they won and then started punching each other in the face. And so now Steve Bannon and his ilk are out of power. This is them trying to get back into power. So what are you going to do? You're going to defeat Trump and put someone even more right-wing in his place? Good luck with that strategy. Someone even more in a populist range, someone who's a bigger white nationalist. It reminds me of the crying Nazi, the guy who was featured in the Vice documentary about Charlottesville, who said that the problem with Trump was that he wasn't racist enough. He let his daughter marry a Jew. Okay, good luck trying to find someone more racist, more bigoted, etc., to execute your strategy. It ain't going to happen. All they're going to do is rip each other up now. So, and by the way, you have to understand something. I'm not a guy who's been on that side. I know that the MSNBCs of the world just love it when Republicans fight, but that's, in reality, 90% of the time, that's the right wing of the Republican Party pulling the rest of the Republicans further right. It's not really a problem for them. For them, that's the solution. In this case, they pulled him right. It wasn't right enough, and now they're going to war. And here, it's not going to be effective. They can't make Trump any more right-wing than he already is. They're not going to change the minds of establishment players like Gary Cohn and H.R. McMaster. This is a war that the Breitbart guys will lose, but they will do a lot of damage to Trump and the Republican Party losing it, which, for the rest of us, is great news. So let me tell you more about it. Bannon also says we have a duty to the country to be the vanguard of the movement. Well, again, fair enough if you were going to seize power, but you already did seize power, and it didn't work. So now this is the movement turning on their leader and turning on the rest of the party. Have at it, Hoss. So Alex Marlowe is a Breitbart news editor-in-chief, and he says about Bannon, quote, he wants to beat their ideas into submission. Well, right now, that's certainly not the direction that it's going, because it appears Steve Bannon has been beaten into submission, and hence he's now running a failing media outlet online again. Again, they make almost no money. Almost all their revenue is gone. 90% of advertisers have pulled out, and their numbers are not doing well at all. Their readership has gone down. So that's him leading a movement. That's him beating ideas into submission. So far, it certainly doesn't look like it. Okay. Now, they explain here in Vanity Fair, Bannon's main targets are the West Wing's group of New York Democrat, quote-unquote, globalists, Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, and former Goldman Sachs President Gary Cohn, as well as the Hawks, comprised of National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster and his deputy Dina Powell. So, if they were talking about how they were against interventionism, which was one of their claims during the campaign. And Trump has said over and over again that he wants to get out of Afghanistan and there's no winning there. Except tonight he's set to announce further troop escalation in Afghanistan. Well, they didn't win that war. And by the way, they don't actually mean de-escalate. Banno's bright idea was to hand over Afghanistan to a bunch of privately funded mercenaries who would then get to do whatever they want to maximize profit with guns in a different country under the auspices of the federal government when they are not the federal government. That's the only thing that's a worse idea than further escalation in Afghanistan. So they don't really mean that they are against the hawks. They just want to make more money off of wars. And you should know their real agenda. In terms of fighting against Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, well, good luck. That's the president's daughter and son-in-law. And so, but they're going to fight dirty anyway. We'll tell you about that in a second. Now, Vanity Fair further explains that on Sunday, Breitbart took renewed aim at McMaster, who's, of course, the national security advisor, with a headline claiming he advocated Quran kissing. Okay, so that's insane. So I looked further into that. Pretty sure General McMaster is not all about making out with the Quran. So let's go to graph 46 first. The title of this insane piece on Breitbart was H.R. McMaster endorsed book that advocates Quran kissing apology ceremonies. Did a U.S. general really advocate that our troops going around apologizing to Muslims and kissing the Quran over and over? Of course not. You want to talk about fake news? Breitbart is the king of fake news. That's a grossly misleading title in a preposterous article. So what's the reality? The Hill reports the book that McMaster, in his tenure as general, did promote was a guide, and it's a military manual, by the way, to how, quote, not to inflame religious tensions with Muslim populations in the countries where American troops are deployed. Now, if you're a general, that seems pretty sensible. We're going into Iraq. Our claim is that we're going to liberate Iraq. So if you go in there saying you're against Muslims, Iraq is almost all Muslim. That's a really bad idea and will get more troops killed. Remember, at a minimum, pretend that you're there to liberate them. It's not a matter of apologizing. It's a matter of not getting our troops killed. Nobody's telling them to go kiss Qurans. What they're telling them to do is don't antagonize the local population we are pretending to help. Otherwise, you'll be in a bigger civil war and a bigger mess than we were already in. Seems pretty sensible, and as usual, Breitbart completely misleading you. Gee, I wonder why they don't have very many readers. Okay, now, who else is Bannon going to go after? Bannon ally said, oh yeah, Jared Kushner. Quote, he said Jared is a dope. Wow. Apparently he calls Jared and Ivanka Chavanka. Whatever. Now, there's another piece of the profit motive here that might not make Bannon's motivations purely beneficial to just the movement, but perhaps also beneficial to his bottom line. The Bannon camp believes that Rupert Murdoch, was especially receptive to Kushner's lobbying because Murdoch is worried about the rise of Sinclair Broadcasting as a competitor of Fox, and blames Bannon for Trump's decision so far not to block Sinclair's $3.9 billion takeover of Tribune Media in May. So Murdoch owns Fox News. He doesn't want competition to it. He wanted to block the Sinclair merger because Sinclair is also insanely right-wing and might be a competitor to Fox News for that extreme right-wing part of the population. So Murdoch's mad that merger doesn't get blocked, although he loves it when his mergers are approved. Gee, it's almost as if they care about their bottom line and not real ideology. All these guys. So Murdoch uses Kushner, and now Bannon doesn't like that because he might want to do a deal with Sinclair that involves a new organization and more money for Steve Bannon. So they say, Breitbart staffer says, all the Sinclair guys are super tight with Breitbart. Imagine if we got together Hannity and O'Reilly and started something. Okay, so they are in fact thinking about starting a new venture, and hence they were pissed because their own financial motivations were touched. Now, what's he going to do with this feud with Kushner and the rest? Ooh, this is where it gets really good. In his feud with Kushner, Bannon may have a powerful ally. Reince Priebus also recently departed from the White House with a quiver of grudges. Recently, according to several sources, Bannon has told friends he wants Priebus to give his account of the James Comey firing to Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller. Wow! You get that? That is Bannon telling Priebus, who's also pissed, hey, why don't you tell him that Kushner helped fire James Comey? Why? Because that means that Kushner could be investigated by Mueller, a criminal investigation. And does that investigation lead up to the president? Very, very likely so. And here's Steve Bannon and the extreme right wing going, don't care. And if that leads to Trump's impeachment, so what? In fact, you're going to get more specific about that in a second. But let me give you more from the Vanity Fair piece. At Breitbart, Bannon has a brigade of similarly happy warriors. They explain, here's a quote, we're in a loud bar celebrating the return of our captain. Breitbart's Washington editor Matt Boyle told me on Friday night. Breitbart's defense of Trump has so far helped keep the Russia scandal from gaining traction on the right, but that could swiftly change if Trump, under the influence of Kushner and Cohn, deviates too far from the positions he ran on. But he will, because Trump doesn't even know the positions he ran on. Doesn't know, doesn't care, has never cared. He was just crowd surfing. He was A/B testing in the crowd. He was like, we're against trade wars. Boo, crickets. We're for trade wars. Yes, that's it. I meant we're for trade wars. But now that Bannon is gone and everybody else is gone and all you have is the establishment left, the guy's an idiot. He doesn't have two brain cells to rub together. He just listens to whoever's in the room last. And who's in the room last out? Kushner, Cohn, and the other guys. McMaster and the others. So he will deviate from what Steve Bannon wants. And then Bannon and Breitbart are now promising that means we'll help unearth the Russian connections, help the Russian investigation of Robert Mueller, the one that they had been diminishing all along and saying that it was a nothing burger, that it was no big deal. Now, look at a load of this quote. If that happens, said one high-level Breitbart staffer, meaning the deviation from what Breitbart wants and Steve Bannon wants, quote, we're prepared to help Paul Ryan rally votes for impeachment. We've got Bright Club and we've got war. That's what this is. So his own base already, a couple of days after Steve Bannon's let go, is not only talking about war, which they did on day one, now they're talking about impeachment. Now remember, if Democrats ever brought up impeachment, the right wing would go, oh my God, how dare you? How dare you? But the minute they're touched even slightly, they're like, well, I mean, we could help Paul Ryan, their mortal enemy. They hate Paul Ryan. We could help Paul Ryan get votes for impeachment. Make our day. Have at it, Hoss. Everybody take out your political shivs and go to work on one another. Now, this is a right-wing fight that actually doesn't pull the Republican Party and Washington and the country to the further right wing. This actually does a lot of damage. It'll do more damage to Trump, the Republican Party, and everything else by the time this war is done. So, it's a rare war I support. Go forward. Fire away. Now, let's go to the next story, which is about why people aren't leaving, okay? So there's a lot of folks calling for resignations, including myself. I thought there should be mass resignations in the Trump White House after he said there were good people on the neo-Nazi side. I'll show you some of those good people in a second. And he said, well, I mean, both sides are culpable. When a Nazi ran over counter-protesters, injured 19 people, and murdered Heather Heyer. Those were unconscionable comments from a man who is clearly bigoted and racist. And at what point do you draw the line? Well, apparently a lot of Steve Mnuchin's classmates from back in the day at Yale are asking him that question privately. So he did a public post where he answered them. He said, I feel compelled to let you know that the president in no way, shape, or form believes that neo-Nazi and other hate groups who endorse violence are equivalent to groups that demonstrate in peaceful and lawful ways. Well, first of all, when you have to remind people that the president is not a neo-Nazi sympathizer, you're already in a world of trouble. that should not have to be clarified. But in this case, it does have to be clarified. And by the way, he's absolutely not correct when he says in no way, shape, or form does the president believe that, because he had a giant press conference where he blamed the other side, and he did draw moral equivalency. It's clear as day. We covered it on the show. You can go back and watch the videos. Both sides, he said, were at fault. He said there's very, very violent people among the counter-protesters, the people who were actually killed. It's absolutely outrageous. So Mnuchin is lying to try to save his own ass. And he points out, he says, look, I'm an American of Jewish heritage and background, and so I wouldn't stay in the administration if I thought he was with neo-Nazis. So you claim. But that power, it is addicting. He went on to say, I don't believe the allegations against the president are accurate, and I believe that having highly talented men and women in our country surrounding the president and his administration should be reassuring to you. That's a subtle hint to those guys. Hey, if you think it's bad with me and the rest of the folks inside the administration, imagine what would happen if we left. Then the idiot would be on his own to do even more damage. Boy, really reassuring that that's the guy you're working for. So Mnuchin says that the president was not equivocating. We know he was. I just want to give you a sense of why his classmates are concerned. Remember, Donald Trump said there are very good people on the side of the original protesters, the white nationalist protesters. So I want to show you a piece from the Vice documentary. We'll have the link to the full documentary below, and it is great, where they were chanting on Friday night. Yes, they've got the torches at a white nationalist get-together. That already should have been a giant clue. If it wasn't, they did this.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
Okay, you see the guys in the Nazi haircuts and the Nazi flags and symbols. Maybe you don't know what those symbols stand for, and you certainly don't know what the haircut stands for. Then they hand you a torch at a white nationalist parade. If you're anywhere near a decent person, you've already exited the building. But maybe you're the dumbest person alive and you don't know what those torches represent when in the context of white nationalism. Then they start chanting, "You will not replace us." You're confused by that chant. What do you mean? Who's you and who's us? And then they start chanting "blood and soil." Well, that's an old Nazi chant, but maybe you're ignorant of that as well. Well, when they get to "Jews will not replace us," and you're still in the march, then I think it becomes a little harder to make the case, even if you're the dumbest person alive, that you were a very fine person. And you happen to go there, and now, look, hey, man, we were just having fun chanting "Jews will not replace us." No, we know exactly who was on that side, and Trump is still defending those guys to this day. So Mnuchin not leaving will be a great stain on his record, which already has plenty of stains, let alone everyone involved. Now, Axios broke down, after talking to a lot of Trump staffers, including senior staffers, why they're staying. So here's one excuse they were using. General Mattis needs us. So that's not an actual quote by somebody, but it's the idea that they're trying to convey. Many talk about their reluctance to bolt on their friends and colleagues who are fighting the good fight to force better Trump behavior decisions. They rightly point out that together they have learned how to ignore Trump's rhetoric and at times collectively steer him to more conventional policy responses. In other words, same thing as Steve Mnuchin intimating, if you think he's bad with us, you should get a load of him without us. The guy's a total idiot, and without Jim Mattis, the Secretary of Defense, and all of us to contain him, he'll even be more childlike, more of a tyrant, and more of a danger to the Republic. Wow, very comforting. Okay. Another excuse, now this is a full-blown excuse, is Trump's not as evil as portrayed. All of them talk up the president as more reasonable off Twitter and TV than on it. This gives them hope, though almost all increasingly say it's a fleeting hope. He will listen to his better angels, or at least the pleas of Ivanka. Hope against hope. Now that is the audacity of hope. No, Trump is not going to listen to his better angels. He doesn't have any better angels. He is a white nationalist at heart himself. He's always been racist. What he did to the Central Park Five and what he continues to them is an outrage, let alone Obama, let alone all the racist things that he has backed, let alone Charlottesville and his response to it. There are no better angels. He's not a better person off of TV or Twitter. He's the same kind of madman. In fact, there's 1,000 reports about how he's even worse to his staff behind the scenes and yells at him nonstop for problems that he created. So that's nothing but nonsense. All right, excuse number 3. You have no idea how much crazy stuff we kill. The most common response centers on the urgent importance of having smart, sane people around Trump to fight his worst impulses. If they weren't there, they say, we would have a trade war with China, massive deportations, and a government shutdown to force construction of a southern wall. If you have to explain to a reporter that if we leave, our president will destroy the country, there's a good chance you're working for the wrong guy. That you have a much better chance of serving the country not by helping that guy, but coming out and declaring openly what you know about the president, what you've been hiding about the president the whole time, and telling people this guy's a danger to the republic. So don't give me any BS about, I'm just trying to help the country by working for this madman. There's a much better way of helping the country. It's by getting rid of that madman, of course, in legal, political ways. And finally, there is a little bit of honesty. Some of them said, in essence, we like the power. It's not a direct quote, but listen to what they had to say, summarized by Mike Allen at Axios. Well, no one comes out and says this blatantly, but working in the White House, even this one, is intoxicating and ego-stroking. They have enormous say over regulations and rules, invites and implementation, government jobs, and access to the Oval. They also know they are one step away from an even bigger job in government, so it's hard to just walk away. By the way, there's so much attrition, and Trump fires so many people, that if they stick around, they might get promoted higher and higher and higher, and then when they become a lobbyist, they can say, do you know what kind of senior position I had at the White House? Now pay me. Let me just assure you, that's actually the number one reason that they're staying at the Trump White House. Everything else is ancillary, and besides which, doesn't help their cause. The rest of it is basically an admission that they work for an incompetent madman, and they still, to this day, have not resigned in great shame, which is exactly what they should do. Young Turks.
News is breaking. It's time for Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. This is Brett Ehrlich with Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. Hello, welcome to Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. I'm Brett Ehrlich with Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. Today in the news, voting. I voted Team Edward. Is Twilight still a thing?
I'm super excited because we have different levels of members. They pay $10 a month, but there are some members that pay a little more. Executive producers, for instance. My favorite thing about executive producers is that we have quarterly calls with them. I love that I'm getting a little transparency and I'm knowing what you guys like and dislike, ideas on how to improve the show, topics that maybe we haven't heard of yet and really want us to cover. We have so much respect for you because of the fact that you keep us independent and allow us to be uncensored, unfiltered, without worrying about corporate sponsors breathing down our necks and telling us what we can and can't say. So if you want to be a member, obviously no pressure. You can go ahead and join by going to tytnetwork.com/join. I'm going to ask some uncomfortable questions. The first topic that I said that we would discuss a little more is masturbation.
And then I was swimming in a hazelnut river.
Are you sure you're not doing mushrooms? Oh my god, I can achieve an orgasm by myself.
Fuck that, I am going to talk about it, because there should be no shame on it. I think a lot about that, because I love life.
That openness led to amazing.
And I keep saying to everybody, oh, I got to go call my wife. I figured that was a good excuse, so people can't say, hey, don't call your wife. I'm going to release listen.
It's so weird, because at that moment I felt this, and it smelled like lavender.
At the end, you get to go check. Nice check. If you're a member of the Young Turks, you too will rock the world.
My hands are bare small. Something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee. You said I had small hands? They're not small, huh? I never heard that one before. Turks, let me read a couple of tweets for you guys. Gabby says, so we should get ready to build statues to the losers of this impending Republican Civil War. It's a good point. In fact, that leads me to YouTube Super Chat, where Kyle Naylor wrote it in, participation statues, the South lost. Indeed. Back to Twitter for a second. Deborah NYC says, Jared and Ivanka are dopes. I don't need Bannon to tell me that. By the way, you do hashtag TYT live on Twitter if you want us to read your comments, and on YouTube you do use Super Chat, and that also helps the show. Mark on Twitter says their movement is worse than a bowel movement. I'm amused by that. I'm also amused by Claire saying, to coin a good British phrase, the administration can't organize a piss-up in a brewery. Now, I don't know what that means, but it sounds awesome. I like British phrases. Okay, and finally on YouTube Super Chat, Take You Tuesday has a random comment about Game of Thrones, and we did do our live coverage last night, as we do on Sundays. We watch it and then we do the review. And this is not a spoiler alert because he doesn't know anything more than we do. He's just guessing, but it is a pretty good guess, to be fair to him. He says, my end prediction is Jon and Dany will have sex/fall in love. She will get pregnant, but will die in birth. Kid will die as well. Then Jon will rule all of Westeros as the king.
He is the story of ice and fire. Damn, that was a pretty good ending to that comment. And in case you're wondering, and you're a Game of Thrones fan, Daenerys, Tyrion, Jon Snow, all of their mothers died during childbirth. Interesting. Okay. So now, back to our real Game of Thrones in the real world, where there is some significant intrigue. Let's go to that. Now, there's a couple of different ways that Donald Trump could end his term. One is it goes the whole 4 years, and then he loses re-election. Of course, it can go 8 years, and then he would step down. 8 years. 4 years, that's a good one. Okay, he's not going to make it. So if he's not going to make it, there are only two paths for him to leave, impeachment and resignation. Wait, there's actually a third. So impeachment is the one that is most often talked about. Resignation could come for a number of reasons, mainly because you're worried they're going to impeach you. But the third path is the 25th Amendment. If you are mentally incompetent to carry on the duties of the office, the vice president, combined with majorities in Congress, can have you removed. Now, some scholars say that it is a very, very high standard, meaning you don't pretty much have to be in a coma. Others say, no, that's not the case at all. We would just have to be absolutely sure that he is literally mentally incompetent to hold office, not meaning that we think he's dumb. That's a fairly easy case to make at this point, I believe, and probably could get a huge percentage of the country to agree with you. But that he has some sort of issue, which then leads us to speculation about this. Started a couple of months ago by one of the top allies for the president, Roger Stone. He said this before anyone else did. Listen.
They are going to claim that Donald Trump has Alzheimer's, that it is progressive, and that is progressing, and that is the source of his insanity. But under the 25th Amendment, if a majority of the cabinet plus the vice president agree that the president is incapacitated, well, then he is removed. And if he seeks to fight the charges, it goes to the U.S. House of Representatives, where erosion among Republicans could destroy the Trump presidency. But this is the game plan. Watch carefully. You're going to see the word Alzheimer's more and more in the next several days.
I believe that was Roger Stone trying to plant a thought in people's heads. It didn't stick. Almost no one talked about Alzheimer's at that time or a couple of days later. But it is very interesting that it's his Trump sign that's putting that out there. Look, I think a very solid theory as to how Trump resigns is they say, oh, well, he had a checkup, and it turns out poor guy's got early stage Alzheimer's. He's going to have to step down. Now, is he going to do that because he's tired, or that he's realized his opponents are correct, that he doesn't have the mental capacity for leadership? Of course not. No, they would do that as the beginning of a defense for the charges against them on the Russian collusion. Some of Trump's lawyers have represented mob characters who claimed insanity. That is the beginning of an insanity plea. Oh, please go in that direction. For the good of the country, for the good of the world. One, you'd resign from office. Two, we'd get to say we told you it was crazy. And three, it's not a defense that's going to work. But it gives you a sense of how desperate they are. It's his side that starts it, but it then starts to snowball. In a hot mic moment, two senators were caught talking about Donald Trump. They said a lot of disparaging things, but they also touched on this issue. One was a Democrat, Jack Reed. The other one was a Republican, Susan Collins. Listen to this.
I don't think that likely, and it's a kind of,
well, look, there's a Republican senator saying he might be crazy. So it has begun. Now we go to Bob Corker, another Republican senator, a very respected one, a very right-wing one from the South. And nonetheless, he said this.
The president has not yet been able to demonstrate the stability nor some of the competence that he needs to demonstrate in order to be successful.
Damn. That is a guy who, in the past, has not really criticized Trump. There's some Republicans who have. He was not in that group. for a guy that deeply right-wing to come out and say, our president, the head of the Republican Party, might not have the stability or the mental competence to be president. That should not be understated. That's a huge news event. That happened on Friday. So this is picking up steam. Jackie Speier, back on the Democratic side, tweeted out, POTUS is showing signs of erratic behavior and mental instability that place the country in grave danger. Time to invoke the 25th Amendment. That's a U.S. congressperson saying that. When Adam Schiff was asked about it, now he's a person who's higher up in Democratic leadership in the House, he said, I don't think we're at a point of thinking about the 25th Amendment. Saying in the longer version of that interview, I can see why people are concerned, I can see why they're going in that direction, but basically saying, not yet, which doesn't mean no, that's outrageous, no, we wouldn't think about it, just not quite yet. And by the way, Democrats, for all that they're supposed to oppose Trump, often are far more timid in opposing him than Republicans who are not on Trump's side. Whether it's Bob Corker, Susan Collins, or people like Jennifer Rubin, very, very conservative writer for the Washington Post, when asked in a podcast if Trump is racist, she said, absolutely. He basically sees the world in very simplistic terms, and he categorizes people based on race and other factors along those lines, which you shouldn't make decisions based on. So when the time comes and Trump needs Republicans, it appears that a lot of them are not going to be there for him, and we're just at the beginning of this process. Now, speaking of timid, the mainstream media is incredibly timid when it comes to these type of topics. Nonetheless, Brian Stelter, in a slightly awkward way, brought up this issue over the weekend on CNN's Reliable Sources. Let's watch.
Is the President of the United States a racist? Is he suffering from some kind of illness? Is he fit for office? And if he's unfit, then what? These are upsetting, polarizing questions that they're uncomfortable to ask. But we in the national news media can't pretend like our readers and viewers aren't already asking. They are asking. Is the President of the United States suffering from some sort of illness? Is he racist? Is he fit to be Commander-in-Chief? And one more. Is it time for objective journalists, and I don't mean opinion folks, I mean down-the-middle journalists, to address these questions head-on? And if so, how in the world should they do that?
That's actually super simple. I like the overly dramatic reading of that, but but you just talk about them. I know why CNN is very, very reluctant to do that, because they're like, oh, we don't want to be called the liberal media. No, please. Now look, Bob Corker's talking about it. It's okay. And by the way, they wouldn't have brought it up if people like Bob Corker didn't give them permission to bring it up, in a sense. So, is the president racist? Look, we talked about that before. He clearly is. I mean, saying that he thinks the people who were protesting Nazis were just as culpable in saying that many sides, both sides do it. He called the counter-protesters of Nazis very, very violent. He said there was very fine people on the Nazi side. Jesus Christ. Anyway, is he ill? Does he actually have Alzheimer's? I have no idea. I'm not his doctor. And by the way, his doctor doesn't know. Trump writes his own notes for the doctor. The doctor pretty much admitted that, as goofball as he is. Is he unfit for office? Damn straight he is. That's not a hard conversation at all. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that you could use the 25th Amendment. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that in 1 second, but I want to get your thoughts. We're doing a poll, tytnetwork.com/25th. And the question is, should Trump be disqualified from the presidency for mental incompetence? I mean, it's a funny way of putting it, but that's pretty much literally what the 25th Amendment would do. Now, again, you need Pence and you need a majority of Congress. It's not an easy thing to do. Do I think they should do it? No. Look, the guy is horribly incompetent. I told you from day one and earlier than day one that his number one problem would not be the racism or his policies, it would be his grotesque incompetence. Why do you think I did a segment called Loser Donald, where I found you 100 examples of his incompetence before the election? Because I knew that that's his number one problem. But we knew that before we voted. think you should be able to replace a president just because he's monumentally dumb or you think he's monumentally offensive. So, if there is a crime and Mueller finds evidence of it, warm up that impeachment machine. I'll be the first person in that parade. I think Trump is going to resign in disgrace anyway. He might even use this Alzheimer's defense that his buddy Roger Stone has set up for him. But in terms of pushing out a president because we don't like him, that's an undemocratic principle that I'm not in favor of, even with a monster like Donald Trump, even though he's clearly incompetent in every way, shape, or form. But the guy's not in a coma, and we have no idea if he actually has an illness. So I vote no. But that's how bad it's gotten that we're having that conversation. Okay. I'm out of time. But there's a fun thing that we're going to do today. It starts today. I don't know if we'll do more of it. Called the OT. We're going to go overtime. So we'll do the second hour next. There's amazing stories there, including political ones about why the Navy ships are crashing. There's 4 of them that have crashed in the last year alone. And also how much money we're spending on Trump's Secret Service, because he keeps flying all over the place. But after the show's over, and even after the post game, I'm going to do a couple more segments for you guys, including, and that's of course for the online audience and for the members. And by the way, tytnetwork.com/join to become a member and get the full show, all the show, including the post game and the overtime, including a story about how a couple of the people who attended the Charlottesville rally have been thrown out of their colleges, and should they have been? And I think that's a very important question. And by the way, a guy who theoretically had a haircut that looked like a Nazi haircut got attacked in Colorado today. I'm going to tell you about that in the overtime as well. All right, but come right back. Let's talk about the Navy and the Secret Service troubles. We'll be right back.
It's insane to look at. You can see almost the grooves of the moon, the imperfect surface of the moon as it blocks out the sun for this very rare moment. We are in totality. This is amazing. I'm so glad we came. I can't describe it.
I'm really glad I came, because this is so incredible. Woo!
No longer. We cannot look. Glasses go back on now. Woo! This is incredible.
Hey, Jen, what's up? Aaron, I'm reading some of the comments on a YouTube video I did. What the cuck? Go. All right, post-game here in Studio B. It's a green screen magic of internet television. Oh, a lot of condom breaking stories. Any conversation that starts with marriage is an interesting thing deserves a little bit.
When the kid cries, perhaps that's the that is an opportunity to do so. It's an opportunity to parent.
Yeah, parenting is you cry, you're gone. Oh my God.
I love that video.
Yeah, Ben, I got a great I chew. You're like, my mouth was open, she sneezed in my eye.
I used to have Donut Tower next to my desk. Yeah, I'll dress up like a girl.
I sound confident now, Anna.
Yeah.
When we're off the air, I'm going to be like, how is this going to work?
When you get literally asked why 21 straight times.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, you're fucking with me now, right?
So I dumped the kids off at her mom's, and I drove down to La Jolla for a day.
Get out, kids.
They're like, but Daddy, no.
Why? What do you mean, why? You asked me to look at you. You did it. You brought it up. You know you're doing it. Why? I don't know why. I was reading. She's lovely. Here's what's different. Like, it is a different feeling. Everybody says this, but it's 5:11 when we're shooting this. I can't wait to go home. Like that. I can't wait to see it.
What you guys do is allow us to be open and honest, and we don't have to worry about censorship, and we don't have to worry about sponsors telling us what we can and can't say. We're accountable by our audience and our audience only, and I absolutely love that. That's the best part about being a member. We love you guys.
We know.
Smooth.
We're
Smooth
super
entrance.
smooth. Yes. These lights are smooth. I look like I'm in the darkness. But that's okay. I was born in the darkness, so you think darkness is your ally. I was born in it. Okay.
Dark in here? It is, right?
Yes, it's a little dark. We're having issues with some of the lights. Everything's going to be okay. So let me go to some tweets. Marie Jacobson says, I've been talking Alzheimer's for over a year. The only one putting that thought in my head was the man-child himself. Fair enough. Jeff Mayer says, wouldn't comprehensive ignorance, inability to control impulses, and disdain for everyone in government make Trump unable to perform duties? Well, in a sense, and since his agenda is horrific, we're pretty happy he's unable to perform the duties, except when it comes to foreign policy, where he presents a danger to the world. Speaking of which, Mike has the best tweet summarizing all of this. He just writes, President Aerys Targaryen II. Indeed, the Mad King. And like Aerys Targaryen, he might want to light the whole place on fire.
Does he have a hot daughter, though? He does! He does have a hot daughter!
Oh, no, the only problem is that makes Ivanka Daenerys.
But, I mean, she falls a little short, because Daenerys believes in freeing people.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
And doesn't, like, Daenerys' main thing is not selling shoes.
True.
Right. All right. Anyways, what do we got to start with, Anna?
All right. We're starting with something a little different today. A little bit of entertainment news with a political bent. Josh Whedon and his wife are unfortunately divorcing after 16 years of marriage. Now, that's not something that we typically talk about on the show, but the issue of feminism came up because Whedon has gotten a lot of recognition for his role of being what he refers to as a male feminist, right? Now, his soon-to-be ex-wife, Kai Cole, is irritated with the fact that he continues to take on that title, considering the fact that they're divorcing because of his infidelity. So really the topic of discussion here is someone able to be a quote-unquote feminist if he is mistreating the woman in his life, okay? So Kai Cole wrote this piece in the Wrap an op-ed about her experience, and I want to give you a little portion of it just so you kind of get where she's coming from, and then we can have a discussion. She writes that 15 years later, 15 years after they were married, when he was done with our marriage and finally ready to tell the truth, he wrote me, "When I was running Buffy, I was surrounded by beautiful, needy, aggressive young women. It felt like I had a disease, like something from a Greek myth. Suddenly, I'm a powerful producer, and the world is laid out at my feet, and I can't touch it." But he did touch it. So let me give you a little bit more. She writes, "When he walked out of our marriage and was trying to make things seem less bewildering to me to help me understand how he could have lied to me for so long, he said, 'In many ways, I was the height of normal in this culture. We're taught to be providers and companions at the same time, to conquer and acquire, specifically sexually, and I was pulling off both.'" All right. Let's open up this discussion.
Okay, so this is a super uncomfortable discussion to have.
Absolutely.
First of all, it's about their personal lives, and in a sense, I wish we weren't discussing it at all, because it's between them, and her being super mad at him after 15 years of cheating on her is, completely understandable. He put out a very brief statement saying, look, some of the comments in her editorial were misleading, but I'm just going to leave it at that for the sake of the kids and everyone else, which is understandable. So take everything that's anyone says in a divorce with a grain of salt on both sides, because I've seen people say terrible, terrible things, and sometimes they're not exactly right when they say that. The reason to have the discussion is because it's an important and interesting issue. Can you still be a feminist if you're cheating on your wife? As an example. And I think the answer is yes. And I think that she says she's the last kind of person to have made this public, but she felt she needed to. Okay, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why I know why you thought you needed to. Whether you actually needed to is a different question. And I'm trying desperately not to judge them as people, as to whether she should have put this editorial in or not. He should have cheated on her or not.
Yeah.
My inclination is neither one of them should have done that, but that's not that important.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into that, right? She made a decision to write the piece. She did it, and it is what it is. He allegedly cheated on her, and I don't even want to get into the details of that. I don't care. And I don't think it should be, something that people get involved in and start judging people for. But I do think that it is an interesting question as to whether or not someone can be considered a so-called feminist if he is cheating on his wife. And so, look, it's a tough question, right? Because she outlines some of the emotional trauma she suffered as a result of this. And so it seems like it would be impossible for someone to be a feminist if they're mistreating a woman. But at the same time, here's the thing. Infidelity is one of the top reasons why people divorce. It happens all the time. And it happens among average people in average relationships. This is a celebrity, someone who's very closely connected to the entertainment world, and he's a man who has power. So, of course, there are going to be people that are going to be throwing themselves at him. And I think a lot of men in those circumstances at some point might make the mistake of cheating, right? And so I don't want to go overboard and judge him and whatever, but the reality is, yeah, people cheat. The idea of monogamy is a great idea, but are we as humans built to be monogamous for the rest of our lives with the same person? So I don't think that his feminism is necessarily closely tied to his relationship. I think you can be a feminist and mess up time to time, and I think he messed up pretty royally, but I don't want to say that anything that he's done in fighting for gender equality is now out the door because of the fact that he cheated.
Yeah, I think there's two issues here. One is around monogamy and feminism. The other one's about how we judge people overall in society. So on that first issue that Anna just addressed, I'm with you, Anna. Look, monogamy is a hell of a thing, and I feel really lucky and have great peace of mind that I have not cheated on my wife, so I don't have the stress, nor have I put stress on her, of having to tell lie after lie and for 15 years figure out, wait, was I supposed to say that? Was I supposed to say this, etc.? But when other people do it, I don't judge them for it. I mean, are you guys sure we're all meant to be monogamous? You're really sure of that? And so to me, that transgression is, I'm not trying to downplay it because it involves heartbreak.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? And a ton of emotions, rightfully so, and deceit, right? But it is one of the most common human foibles there is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you take away everything else that a person's ever worked for based on that. I mean, my absolute role model, hero, is Martin Luther King. There's a good deal of evidence that he was not monogamous. So does that mean he shouldn't get credit for the civil rights era? That's insane. There's good evidence FDR was not perfectly monogamous. Does that mean he shouldn't get credit for uplifting tens of hundreds of millions of Americans through the programs that he did?
Look,
that's insane.
There's no such thing as a perfect human, and we're all flawed. We all have our vices, and, you know, I'm not making excuses for what happened, but I will say that if we judge people based on their worst actions and then we just use that as our outlook on them, then no one is going to have a positive, you know, reputation. Everyone has their negative moments, moments that they're embarrassed by or humiliated of. So there's that. But the one thing that I do want to call him out on, if it's true, because remember, this is her perspective and this is her side. The only thing that he said is, you know, even though there are a few inaccuracies here, I'm not going to respond to it because out of respect, right? But the one thing that she accuses him of is blaming his infidelity on the patriarchy. Essentially saying, like, oh, but society expects all of this of men, and because of these expectations, you know, I faltered. If he really made those excuses, come on.
Yeah.
Really, you're going to blame the patriarchy on that?
No. Yeah, I'm 1,000% with Anna on this one. Look, dude, just leave it alone, right? So, again, people say terrible things in a divorce, and I don't know exactly what's true or not true, but if he said that, that's a preposterous statement. No, you did it because you were horny. Don't give me this crap about patriarchy and how it was the expectations that were... No, the expectations came from your genetic makeup. It's not... So there, maybe I'm not as liberal or progressive as other folks where it's, oh, the patriarchy sets the society. To some degree it does, no question about that. And so do our genetics. And our genetics are not perfectly monogamous. So you don't have to get into the patriarchy to excuse your adultery. That's crazy talk. Now, finally, on the second part of the conversation, which is how much should we judge people? Because one of the requests she's making is that he shouldn't get awards anymore for feminism or anything. But he did do those things. He did do those positive things. And he did put out positive images in the media. And so... No, I mean, look, there are lines. So, Roman Polanski, rape, underage girl, ran from the law, etc. You don't want to give Roman Polanski awards? I get it, right?
Yeah, I want to prosecute Roman
That's
Polanski.
right. What we mainly want to do is prosecute him, and we can figure out about his awards later once he's in prison. But if we keep going down that ladder, we say, okay, now take away the awards for this, and that person shouldn't get... recognized for the good works that he did because of X, Y, Z, we're all going to be eliminated.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about, you know, you at your worst and having the entire world know about that and then having that be like what people use to judge your entire character. I mean, it's unfair. We're all incredibly flawed. Myself included, you're flawed, you're super flawed. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think relationships are hard. Marriage is hard. I feel terribly for her because I could imagine being in a situation like that and feeling completely heartbroken by it. But again, you know, you at your worst is not representative of who you are as a person.
Yeah, and look, I don't want anybody to mistake what I'm saying because I am heartbroken for her. It's the same thing that I criticized Bill Clinton for. Look, he shouldn't have been impeached for it, but the lies that he made up, just one, it kind of... In Clinton's case, it attacked the women that he had slept with, pretending they were crazy. Mm-hmm. But when you continue to lie for all those years to your own spouse, it makes her feel like she's the crazy one. And,
yep.
Right? And when in reality, she was right all along. So I'm not minimizing the pain of that. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying if we get into that, then there's no getting out. Then because we're all human, and I like the new superhero title that Anna gave me. I'm super flawed. Okay, so, I mean, look, I'll give you a super benign example. If all you ever saw of me was luckily no one videotaped this, was an argument that I had with Steve-O on a basketball court, where we were so loud the police had to come.
Oh my God.
Yes, it's literally true, okay? You would think that guy's absolutely mental, but that's not the totality of me. I hope that's a tiny percentage of my life and my character overall. So, I mean, it's the oldest thing in the book, right? We all live in glass houses. So let's be a little bit careful where we throw those stones.
Yep. All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, I will talk about the Navy ship that had a pretty devastating accident. 10 soldiers are still missing. And then later on, we will talk about the purple drink and the CEO who came up with that drink. Where is he now? What is he doing? You don't want to miss it. Come on. You give it away.
No, we didn't. We'll see. Come back.
They'd rather lose to Republicans than have a progressive win with them. That's how dumb the corporate Democrats are.
It's the Democrats who lull you to sleep, and at the end of the day, they're the ones who push the right-wing agenda. Most of the people are either unemployed, underemployed, or fucked.
This is why you lost to Trump, you fucking moron. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Whoever wrote that, I'm sure they were typing with one hand and going like this. The Democrats are dead. The way you feel right now, that's how a chump feels.
Do not freak out.
One, two, three, four.
There's always these weird cream cheese options. I can never just find the plain. What about salmon? Do I look like a grizzly bear? Here, try this veggie. Here's the plain. Where is it? You're more of a grape drink kind of guy, right? Or try this mouthwash. Where's the plain? Do you like sexual healing? Where is the plane? Where's the plane? Where's the plane? Where is it? Where's the plane? Dude. Anna Raspberry. No, I want the plane. Supervisor! Aren't you the supervisor? Isn't the whole point of being supervisor? Why do you get to decide my cream cheese options? At what point do you decide there'd be no plain cream cheese? I don't understand. Take it easy, man. No, this is true just like with politics and anything else. If we don't stand up for ourselves, they're just gonna fuck us even harder. You're not gonna believe this. They kicked me out of the kitchen. Alright, we got a graphic incoming. Putting up 3, 2, 1. Alright. Video next. And next video. And power panel. And dropping it.
on Turks, Jenk, and Anna with you. Historic Larry writes in, can I just mention Kim Orchard did a fantastic job with her eclipse coverage today. Hashtag too strong. Hashtag too smart. I agree. I think I'm going to start wearing that t-shirt around. Too smart. So we did send Kim to cover the solar eclipse live. You saw it on youtube.com/TYT this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are. And some of that coverage will also be up on Nerd Alert. So youtube.com/Nerd Alert. Check that out. Kim R. writes, and if a lesbian couple considers themselves feminists and one cheats, are they both still feminists? Of course. Gender doesn't matter here. So it's an interesting point by Kim. And Joseph S. says, can we hear about Jenk's argument with Steve O on the basketball court during the TYT postgame? Well, ask and ye shall receive. Yes, I will tell you all about that. So come join us at tytnetwork.com/join. You get to hear fun stories like that, / disastrous ones. Plus, you get the whole show commercial free anytime you want it. Speaking of which, member shout-outs today are Patrick Wilson and Jared Fox. Thank you, guys. All right, what's next, Anna?
All right. A Navy warship has collided with a tanker, and unfortunately, this is the 4th time it has happened in the past year. Now, it's important to keep in mind that this is equipped with a missile defense system, and so as a result, there were a lot of conspiracy theories flying around about its GPS systems being hacked into. However, I want to be clear that there hasn't been any evidence of that so far. Now, let me give you the details and the facts of what actually occurred. Now, Monday's crash marked the 4th time this year a U.S. warship has been involved in an accident in Asian waters. In addition to the 10 missing sailors, the Navy said 5 were injured in the collision. 4 of those were flown by a Singapore Navy helicopter to a hospital in Singapore where they were treated for injuries that are not considered life-threatening. Now, we have a quick report on this incident, which will show you the extent of the damage. We'll come right back and give you more details.
A gaping wound on the port side of the USS John S. McCain. After colliding with an oil tanker close to the entrance of the Malacca Strait, one of the world's busiest shipping routes. 10 sailors are missing, presumed overboard or possibly inside the damaged ship. 5 crew are also injured, and a search and rescue operation is underway. It's reported the crew tried to stem flooding in several places while the vessel headed towards Singapore.
So I just want to say 2 quick things there. One, whenever we show you a video like that, check out the description box because it'll have the full report. If we're showing you a video from someone that's done a good job with it, you should watch their full report. Now, you mentioned conspiracy theories. I'm going to disagree with you slightly. I think there is some evidence.
What's the evidence? I mean, I haven't seen evidence based on what I've read. So
what I mean by that is not that there's a smoking gun of a memo from, the Pentagon saying, yes, they've hijacked our navigation systems and they've been able to hack into it. But I think there is circumstantial evidence. So let's continue the story, and then I'll explain what I think that evidence is.
All right. So just to give you a little more information on the extent of the damage, the Navy reported significant hull damage to the McCain. By the way, this vessel was named after John McCain's father and grandfather, which is why it's called the McCain. They were both in the military, saying there was flooding in berthing compartments as well as machinery and communication rooms. Now, there will be an investigation into this accident and several others that occurred over the last year. James Mattis would like this investigation to take place to kind of figure out why this keeps happening. Let's go to graphic 7, just to give you an outline of the other Navy warships that have experienced similar collisions. On June 17th, the USS Fitzgerald collided with a container ship off the coast of Japan. On May 9th, the guided missile cruiser USS Lake Champlain was struck by a small fishing boat off the Korean peninsula. In late January, the guided missile cruiser USS Antietam ran aground while trying to anchor in Tokyo Bay. So these collisions keep happening, and it's just strange because this isn't typical. So I can see what you mean by some circumstantial evidence, but again, there's no smoking gun at all. So I want to be clear about that.
Okay, so first off, just quick thing on the John McCain. His both his dad and his grandfather were legendary admirals in the Navy, and part of the reason why he was able to get into the military, he was a captain himself. John McCain was, and when he crashed 4 different times, and so Trump, by the way, in reaction to this story, said he prefers ships that don't crash. Didn't say that, but he actually said, "Oh, that's too bad."
Well, he said that's too bad in regard to the 10 missing sailors, and so that appeared to be a little bit of an inadequate response to something
Later,
pretty tragic.
Yeah, some official used his account to tweet out, "Oh, I mean, our thoughts and prayers are with our boys and etc." Right? So, okay, now on to the main event. So, first of all, if Monk has taught me anything, it is that there are no coincidences. So 4 ships in 1 year, that is way too high a number. Now, if it was just, a Korean boat fishing vessel happened to run into a giant ship, yeah, that knucklehead on the fishing boat made a mistake. That's nothing. And if there was 1 accident and that's still nothing. But 4 accidents all in 1 year, I mean, there is a second theory. The second theory is Donald Trump's in charge and incompetence reigns supreme. And the fish stinks from the head down, and everything has become incompetent, and everything's a mess, and we're not winning with it anymore. But I think that's very unlikely. He doesn't get credit for the economy as soon as he walks in. He also doesn't get blamed for all the things that happen as soon as he comes in. Now, on to the theory about why I think that there are issues here. The U.S. military in South Korea began a 10-day military exercise on Monday. The second coincidence is that this crash happens on Monday. So, and all 4 of the crashes were in Asian waters. So we're about to do an exercise with South Korea. All of a sudden, one of our ships can't control itself and runs into a giant oil tanker. The oil tankers are enormous. So here's what one. Yes?
Real quick, I just want to give the audience a detail, and it actually kind of speaks to the point you're trying to make. So they apparently lost the ability to steer momentarily. It was a temporary thing, and then they were able to steer again, but it was too late.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Right. Here, a U.S. Navy official told CNN that the McCain had experienced a loss of steering before the collision. Yeah, so if someone's hacking into our systems, that's exactly what would happen, and that's why you would have the accident. So it's not a conspiracy theory if you have good circumstantial evidence that collisions are happening because you lost control of the ability to steer the ship. Now, it might turn out that it's just a technical failure. There's 1,000 things that it could turn out. That's why Anna's right to say there's no smoking gun. We have no idea if North Korea, China, Russia, whatever, hacked into our ships and etc. But for them to have the inability to steer right before they ran into the other ship, another wild coincidence, and now a series of tremendous coincidences. Now I'm going to quote one other person here, and he says, "How does a state-of-the-art and is an expert in the field? How does a state-of-the-art Navy destroyer equipped with multiple radar systems and communications gear with a full bridge watch not see, detect, and evade a 30,000-ton slow-moving behemoth?" So when you put all that together, something is amiss here. And I don't know what it is. I don't know who did it. I don't know if it's just a technical failure on our part or if there's an adversary here who's messing with our ability to steer the ships at important moments. But if there's a chance that it's the latter, oh boy, that internal review that they have just ordered is more than necessary and is an incredibly high priority. And let me add one last thing that's very important here. If it turns out it was a foreign power who did this, and in the last accident, we lost 7 people. 7 of our sailors died. Now we have another 10 missing. If that's an attack on the United States and we've lost some of our service people to those attacks, that's as serious as a heart attack. So I'm afraid of what they might find out in this investigation, because then we might have to take action. That is not good news for the whole world.
Yep. All right, moving on to some other news. The Secret Service has depleted its funds necessary to pay at least a portion of its agents. 1/3 of its agents have already hit the cap for hours and overtime, which means that some of them might have to work for free unless the Congress does something to allocate more funding for the Secret Service. Now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that last year was a tumultuous one, to say the least, which required a great deal of Secret Service to get involved to protect presidential candidates and be involved in the political conventions that took place. But Donald Trump's administration is also not making things easy when you consider the fact that he's constantly traveling for pleasure, and also he has a gigantic family, which also requires Secret Service. Now, agents must protect Trump, who has traveled almost every weekend to his properties in Florida, New Jersey, and Virginia, and his adult children, whose business trips and vacations have taken them across the country and overseas. Now, the part of this that is frustrating, to say the least, is his sons, who are constantly traveling to other countries for Trump-related business, also get Secret Service. And so taxpayers are footing the bill for that, and that's not related to work for our country or for the government. It's solely based on work that they're doing for their own personal businesses. More than 1,000 agents have already hit the federally mandated caps for salary and overtime allowances that were meant to last the entire year. Since his inauguration, Trump has taken 7 trips to his estate in Mar-a-Lago, traveled to his Bedminster, New Jersey golf club 5 times, and returned to Trump Tower in Manhattan once. Now, I have more details for you, but just to give you an idea of how much all of this costs, take a look at the following video.
The repeated visits to his golf club in New Jersey, round-the-clock security for the First Lady and their son inside Trump Tower in Midtown Manhattan until recently. Tonight, there's more scrutiny on the strain of those operations for the men and women who protect President Trump and his extended family.
They are now working overtime hours they are not getting paid for.
Today, Secret Service Director Randolph Ellis said about 1,100 agency employees will work overtime hours this year.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea, under Donald Trump, 42 people have protection, a number that includes 18 members of his family. That's up from 31 during the Obama administration.
Okay, so there's things that they can't do anything about and things that they can. So you can't do anything about the fact that there's 42 people in your family. His wife and his son stayed behind in New York until June so he can finish the school year there. Some have criticized that because that involves a whole another security apparatus at Trump Tower in New York, and it's perpetual, whereas you could have one apparatus in Washington. Okay, but, I think that it could be argued that that's nitpicking. The one thing that he could definitely control is how much he goes to
golfing,
vacations / outings at his own places, which he's using mainly for advertising.
That's right.
So not only does he keep talking about his winter White House, or in a reference to Mar-a-Lago, and now he's got a summer White House. These are all giant ads, multi-million-dollar ads for his properties. And he even had the temerity after the Charlottesville press conference, which was an absolute disaster, where he blamed the counter-protesters as well, to then plug his properties in Virginia, which he also goes to. The man has no bounds of decency or morality. And here's a guy who criticized Obama's vacations, immediately taking far more vacations. He's in the middle of a giant 17-day vacation now. After taking so much heat for it, they changed it to, and now it drives me crazy when the press dutifully reports it as such. It's now a working vacation.
Right.
Sure it is. Okay, and so that he can help, but he's not, and so that's, if you're a conservative and you cared about our taxpayer dollars, they're throwing them away in bushels here. And by the way, can you stay at the White House one goddamn weekend and do your job? You're the president. It's not an easy job. You have to be vigilant 24/7, and he's nowhere near that vigilant.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because he'll brag about donating $100,000 to the Department of Education, $100,000 from his, presidential salary, while he also simultaneously cuts millions of dollars or proposes to cut millions of dollars from the department. But here's the thing. How about you keep your salary and just travel less? especially when it's travel that's completely unnecessary and you're specifically doing it to advertise your businesses. And also, I mean, think about how frustrating it is to have to pay for his sons to travel to other countries for their businesses. And I get it. Look, it's a tough situation because even though it's frustrating, they also need security. I can understand why they would need security. But there could be ways to save money here, and he seems completely unwilling to do it. Also, let me give you an idea of what's being proposed in terms of allocation of additional funding. So, there is a proposal to raise the combined salary and overtime cap for agents from $160,000 per year to $187,000 for at least the duration of Trump's first term. Also, last year, Congress did have to approve a one-time fix to ensure that 1,400 agents would be compensated for thousands of hours of overtime earned above compensation limits. So this is an ongoing issue, and again, it's only made worse with all the travel involved with Trump and his family.
There's also the personal enrichment angle. Now, other Republicans have spent $1.3 million on Trump properties, sometimes just to stay in Washington or to do conferences in Washington at his hotel. But part of the reason they do it is to make him happy. So, he gets personally enriched, and then he then has more favors for the people who stayed at his properties. And finally, to give you a sense of how much money is involved here, the Secret Service has already spent $60,000 in golf cart rentals alone this year on his properties. Now, if you really cared about the American taxpayers, you could say, hey, you know what? The golf carts you're using to protect me while I go nonstop golfing at my own property, I'm not going to charge the American government for that. But no, he loves to charge the American government for that. Every one of his outings to Mar-a-Lago has cost at least $3 million. So to Anna's point, when he brags about, I'm not even taking my salary, which is, I think for the entirety of the year is about $400,000. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you've spent almost 10 times that every single time you go to Mar-a-Lago, and you've gone there 7 times already. So please spare me the bragging about how you're not taking a salary, because you're wasting a ton of our money and running our Secret Service into the ground while you're at it.
Yes. All right, moving on to some drug-related news. A Florida man has been sentenced to 30 years in prison after he was found guilty of being the quote-unquote CEO of the Purple Drank. So if you listen to rap music, you've probably heard a little bit about the Purple Drank, and apparently there is a criminal element to it, and it involves Harrison Garcia, the man who was just sentenced to 30 years in prison. Now, according to federal prosecutors, Garcia was responsible for pumping the South Florida music scene with a concoction, and it's a mix of promethazine with codeine, soda, and Jolly Ranchers. It's also known as scissor and lean. Okay, so this is an amazing story. I don't know, I just found it super fascinating because of how incredibly dumb this criminal is, okay? Mm-hmm. So the reason why he got in trouble and the reason why he got caught was because he was bragging about it on Instagram incessantly. And so federal prosecutors were like, oh, this guy, we think he might be tied to a string of string of burglaries with, these drugstores in the South Florida area. Now, the 27-year-old relentlessly boasted online, referring to himself as the CEO of Purple Drank, and even sporting a pendant featuring a diamond-encrusted styrofoam cup.
Gee, I wonder if he was doing it. I can't quite tell.
Yeah. So they opened
That's what they drink Purple Drink in.
The red cup, right?
It's styrofoam cups overall.
I think it's those red cups, though. No, it's styrofoam. I don't know. I've never had the Purple Drink.
Oh, sure you have a nice little trick there, yeah.
It actually sounds pretty terrible. Like, if I'm at a party, I don't want to fall asleep. It sounds like I'd fall asleep drinking that, but nonetheless.
Look, I'm a square, but if you handed me something and said, no, it's okay, I made this at home, I call it Purple Drink, and it's got drugs in it. I'm like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Okay, I'm all right. Somebody get me a Coke or a beer, or some vodka or whatever, but I'm not drinking that.
Right. So let's give you some information about his Instagram page and what he posted on there. Records provided by Instagram pursuant to the search warrant revealed direct messages sent and received by Garcia, in which Garcia negotiated with customers for the sale of promethazine with codeine, marijuana, and other controlled substances, and also agreed to provide the requested narcotics. They did go ahead and search his home. After his arrest, Garcia directed police to a stash house in suburban Miami. There, law enforcement found a fully loaded AK-47 assault rifle, a loaded Uzi submachine gun, and 3,000 Xanax pills.
I don't know why they think that he might be doing something wrong. So, apparently good police work to get him to admit his stash house. Okay, let me tell you what I think he's guilty of and not guilty of. So, and the burglaries have proven where they go in and got the material they needed for the purple drink. It's a 4-team crew that doesn't even involve him. He's apparently
the ringleader. The
ringleader for it. So if that's all proven out, and as apparently it has been in trials, yeah, he should go to prison for that. No question about it. I think that all drugs should be legal. So I think I wouldn't drink this, and it probably has done a decent amount. There's good theories as to how much harm it's done in the music industry to some of the people who drank it.
I think it is legal. I don't think this is an illegal substance.
Well, but they're charging him with, selling it. If it's perfectly legal, then he's allowed to sell it.
Well, they're not necessarily they didn't necessarily charge him for selling it. They charged him for stealing the material and then reselling it.
So look, I think in terms of drugs, the more legal we make all the drugs, the safer they're going to be, right? So if there's a legal way to do purple drank and it doesn't kill people or really harm them, okay, right? And even if it really harms them, that's their call to make. But if it's tightly regulated, it's still better than some schmuck in Miami who's like, I got styrofoam cups for everybody, right? So even if it's super dangerous, we're better off regulating it than letting hosers in Miami sell it left and right. So I don't know that he should go to jail for anything other than the burglaries. You're saying that's the case anyway, so all right, I guess mission accomplished.
Yeah. Based on what I read about him and what I know about him, he should be in prison. You can't. First of all, he had a bunch of illegal weapons. It's not just one thing. It's not like, oh, this guy just had, an inventory of cough syrup and whatever, Jolly Ranchers, and he made this drink and handed it out at parties. That's not what he did. That's only a tiny part of what he did. It was, being the ringleader of these burglaries, having all of these illegal weapons that he wasn't supposed to have possession of, all of these other prescription drugs that he wasn't supposed to have possession of. Those are the things that he did that eventually led to him getting charged and convicted.
Yeah, so there's a general charge that he got convicted on called drug trafficking, but it might be for the things that you could legally have, but that he couldn't legally have because he didn't have a prescription for it. So, but the bottom line is, let's legalize everything so that it's way safer. Don't trust a random dude in Miami to give you a purple drink. Okay, and if you're going to commit a crime, don't admit to it on Instagram.
Don't brag about it on Instagram.
Not only was the stuff that with the pictures and the bragging, but the illegal orders that he would fill, he would DM on Instagram, which was a treasure trove of confessions for the authorities.
Exactly.
So, on the other hand, if you're going to be a criminal, do all of the favor of being as dumb as Harrison Garcia.
Exactly. All right, real quick story before we end the hour. Donald Trump says that he wants to build a wall in order to prevent criminals and drug traffickers from bringing drugs across the border. But an interesting new trend is emerging. With drone technology improving, more and more drug traffickers are actually using drones in order to get drugs past the border. Now, police recently busted a 25-year-old American citizen, George Edwin Rivera, about 2,000 yards from the border after spotting his drone in flight. Authorities recovered the drone as well as a huge stash of drugs, 13 pounds of meth, which is worth a reported $46,000 on the streets. So here's a picture of the drone that he used. Its retail value is about $5,000, and it was created specifically to carry heavy material. So people in the film industry use this drone in order to, carry cameras and do aerial shots. And so it's interesting because not only has this happened at the border, apparently drug traffickers are now using these drones to drop drugs in prison yards. Just last week, a smaller hobby drone was used to drop off a package containing marijuana, a mobile phone, and a razor blade into a prison yard in Michigan. That was actually the third time it happened in the state. So
yeah. So, well, there goes Donald Trump's idea of, well, we got to build a wall because otherwise, with a fence, the guys are throwing, drug dealers are throwing 60 pounds of marijuana over the fence and hitting people in the head. He claimed that. That's never happened. It's not documented. It's not true. It's another crazy Trump lie. So, but in this case, they don't have to throw the 60 pounds of marijuana over the wall anymore. You can just fly it in on a drone. And yes, sometimes they get caught, but oftentimes they don't get caught. So now the point of the wall.
Legalize the drugs. Legalize and regulate the drugs. Please, for the love of God, a wall isn't going to solve the drug problem, okay? Drug traffickers are going to find a way to get the drugs across the border if there's demand for it. Just legalize or decriminalize it, regulate it, and take the power away from the cartels. Why is it so hard for people to understand that?
No, Anna, I think if we go just one more year with the war on drugs, we'll turn it right around and we'll win, whatever winning is.
People who are using meth need help, right? But if you legalize and regulate meth, here's what's not going to happen. People who have no interest in meth using meth all of a sudden. Like, just legalize it, regulate it, get people the help they need, take the power away from the cartels. Let's move on with our lives, please.
Yeah, it's not like if it's legal, I'm like, oh, all of a sudden I'd like to have all my teeth rot out, lose my mind, and attack people randomly. Sure, I'll sign up for that. Just make it a tiny bit safer. But, so of course, the wall's also for immigrants coming in. But this whole idea that it was going to win the war on drugs with the wall is so preposterous. As someone pointed out, and Trump didn't have an answer for it during the campaign, they're like, well, they could dig underneath. And he's like, like he never thought of that. And now they can also fly above it with the drones. We call it one drone. God knows how many there are, dozens or hundreds out there. So this has just begun. All right, guys, much love. That's the show for today. Again, if you're watching online, I will have a special overtime edition for you guys. Plus, we have the post game for the members. So all of that at tytnetwork.com/join. And to the radio audience, much love and bye-bye.